It's hour two of Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. And Vince, that can mean only one thing. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Help if I wasn't muted. I am ready for rapid fire, Sean Stiers. Let's
You're
roll.
pulling a Jesse on me there for a second.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
The old mute, your lips are moving, but the mic is muted.
At least I knew I was on mute. Like, I was just trying to find it. Got it figured out, though.
Fill in the blank. LSU firing Brian Kelly in the middle of Kelly's fourth season is blank.
Par for the course these days. You mentioned it at the top of the show. I mean, all of these coaching vacancies out here this season alone is more than there was from the year 2000 to year 2012 prior to November 1st. Like, it's crazy. I mean, there are so many open jobs right now. And unfortunately, if LSU wanted to make a change, which obviously they did, they have to do it now if they want to be in the running for the best coaches that are out there, because all of these other schools are going to be going after them. You can't wait until December, apparently, anymore. The timeline has moved up considerably in college football, and that's what we're going to see, I guess, moving forward. So it's not overly surprising. He wasn't, the losses that he had this year, he was already kind of on the hot seat. I think what kept him around was his buyout, but apparently that doesn't matter anymore either when the governor gets involved.
Man, I tell you what, and the state of Louisiana, apparently, like the governor has to be involved just because of the, it's a state school, Louisiana state and the whole thing. Brian Kelly, the second largest buyout in the history of college football. And the other one belonged to Jimbo Fisher with the $77 million at Texas A&M. And of course, the irony is current LSU athletic director Scott Woodward hired both of them. And so like the two biggest buyouts ever attributed to the same athletic director at two different schools, which is just kind of nuts when you think about it. But Brian Kelly's firing at LSU, I mean, it always felt inevitable, I think, to those of us sitting here, but it is still shocking that it happened this soon, both from a standpoint that it is only his fourth season when he went in there with a 10-year contract and all this money, and from the fact that, as you mentioned, it's not even Halloween. Like, we're still sitting here in October, and it's not even Halloween, and he's gone. Like, his LSU tenure began with 3 straight season opening losses that all but eliminated them from the college football playoff, right out of the gate. And then they beat Clemson this year, and it's like, ooh, man, maybe he's got something down there. Well, I mean, Clemson, obviously, that win was far less impressive, as the season just went on a couple of weeks. But at the end of the day, Brian Kelly is still Brian Kelly, and all the talk about shopping down different aisles. He went to LSU, all the supposed advantages that he got down there, but he never changed his stripes. He was still just this absentee recruiter, still an absentee coach. He thought that he was gaining all these advantages by going to a place by LSU, recruiting hotbed and all this different stuff, all the supposed restraints and the shackles from Notre Dame that he left behind, and it was all going to be lifted off him. But at the end of the day, he just, it feels like he just kind of became this spoiled kid who well, I've got all these advantages now. I don't have to work for it anymore, because you talked about how, in the first hour of the show, when Brian Kelly got to Notre Dame, he was a roll up his sleeves and go to work kind of guy. He had to dig Notre Dame out of the constant cycle and the constant spiral they were in. But the more he got all these different things and all these different advantages, the less he worked ultimately. And what's amazing to me, Vince, is how quickly all these national people have really turned on him as well. Like the way they're talking about him right now, it amazes me.
It is
haymakers that they're throwing on his
Well, listen, Sean, this is how do I say this nicely? This is exactly what happened when Kelly left Notre Dame for LSU, because none of the Notre Dame beat was negative towards Brian Kelly until he left. And then all of a sudden, we didn't like him in the first place, and he did this and he did that. They sat on their hands for years and didn't say anything until he was out the door. And now I feel like the national media has now caught up as well. And now they're saying stuff that they probably knew already now that he's out the door.
Yeah.
It's like deja vu, man.
It really is when you think about it.
There was, one guy that I know of that was saying stuff about BK before he left, and he got a lot of things slung in his face. But he's getting a lot of apologies.
It's Retribution Day is what it is.
Yes, it is.
Retribution Day. That's right. David, thanks for the super chat. He says, it is safe to say it was never a Notre Dame problem, but always a BK problem. We've known that for some time now. LSU has seen the light. Glad we have Marcus Freeman. Go Irish. Finish strong. Thanks again for the super chat and the YouTube there, David.
He thought he was leaving Notre Dame in the lurch. Turns out it was probably the best thing that could have happened to Notre Dame at that time.
Yes. The Aussie family in the YouTube chat says Notre Dame's AD's main job is to get a good coach and fight to keep him. Indiana AD did his job by signing Signetti to an extension. If Freeman leaves, the AD should be fired. Better be proactive.
He just signed an extension, guys. Like pretty darn recently, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, you could lock him up for some more money, I suppose, but he's not going anywhere. Everybody needs to just breathe. Freeman really likes it here, and I know his family likes it here as well. So that means a lot.
Yeah. And I just, like the way Charlie Weiss handled, like as soon as he had one good year, his agent was beating down the door and got him the big raise from Kevin White and all that kind of stuff. It's like we talked about it back in December. How quickly should Pete Bavacqua try to lock up Marcus Freeman? And it was before the playoff game, and ultimately they gave him the extension before the playoffs even started. That he got him to the college football playoff. They gave him the extension. I think that everything worked out, and Freeman just doesn't feel like the kind of guy who's going to keep coming back and saying, "Give me another raise, give me," like that.
Right, exactly. Kind of because that's one of the reasons that BK left is he wanted another raise, and
yeah,
they were like, "No, we just gave you one. We're not giving you another one.
Just gave you a raise. We've given you all these different benefits that you didn't have before. We've spent a lot of money to give you all these different things. It's time to win a playoff game now." And that was too much for Brian Kelly. So he wanted to go for greener pastures and go where he thought it was going to be easier. But shocker, you still have to work. I think he looked specifically at Ed Orgeron and Les Miles and went, those Rubes can win a national championship at LSU. There's no reason I shouldn't be able to. I think that was a big part of his rationale for making that move.
Look, I don't disagree with that particular, look at that job, because look, the last four coaches at LSU, 3 of them won a national championship. Brian Kelly didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the guys that won it, it's like, yeah, I could do that. And what coach in their right mind wouldn't think that? So I don't really have an issue with Brian Kelly thinking that, but the reality is you do have to put the work in. And there's some personal accountability, and there's a way that you treat your players and your assistant coaches and your support staff and all of those different things. And he just doesn't do those things very well.
Well, that's the thing. Like,
didn't work out.
The way, you can say what you want about those two guys as coaches, but in terms of getting talent on the campus, that wasn't an issue. And their personalities, that wasn't an issue. Now, if you hear some of the stories about Ed Orgeron and kind of how he changed after winning the national championship, like he drifted in a different direction as well. But again, like when you talk about like the ability, relating to your players, relating and working with your staff and, all those different things, those are things that those guys both have in spades compared to Brian Kelly.
Correct. And in, I guess, defense of Brian Kelly, I agree with what Josh has to say here. He says they didn't have to deal with NIL. 100% accurate. But you have to adapt and you have to change. Nick Saban changed. He adapted, and he won championships one way, and he also won championships a different way. He changed and adapted, and then he got out when it was NIL time. if you're going to stay in, you've got to adapt and change. And I don't think Brian Kelly did a very good job of that.
When in 2009, when LSU won the College World Series, when our friend Paul Maneri was there, led LSU to a national championship that year, my buddy Randy, my college roommate, we went to school together at the University of Kansas. He covered the LSU beat, both football and baseball down at LSU. And so I went out and, was like hanging out, going, like in the press box at the College World Series and, going to the games. And you remember it. I was running a little website at the time as well, but LSU was playing and there was an extended rain delay. And so like all the guys on the so I was kind of hanging out with guys on the LSU media beat down there because of my buddy Randy, who was on that beat. And so during this rain delay, Les Miles just comes in and he hangs out and he's just shooting the breeze with all the guys on the LSU beat for like over an hour, just hanging out, yucking it up. Like, could you have ever seen Brian Kelly do something like that?
I knew you were going to ask that question.
That's the reason I brought the story up.
Not a chance.
No chance.
He is way too good to mingle with the commoners.
Yeah.
No chance.
He'd be off in the suite, with like doing his whatever. Yeah.
Well, he wouldn't have gone to baseball.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, and that's the thing too, because I think I criticized, because a couple years back when LSU was there at the College World Series, like BK shows up during like the championship series, like the three most important games. That's when Brian Kelly finally showed up. Les Miles was there like opening weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
like he wasn't just there so that the cameras could see him
right
during the championship series. He was there at the beginning of the week, so just night and day difference compared to the way Brian Kelly operates compared to any of these other guys.
And Marcus Freeman, just to bring it back home, I mean, he goes to all kinds of events that is going on with Notre Dame that are outside of the football season. You know what I mean? He's going to lacrosse games. He's going to women's basketball, men's basketball. He's all over the place.
Right.
Hockey. He goes to all kinds of events and still has time to go to his kids' events, by the way, as well. So just a completely different way of approaching life, I guess.
Joe, our resident Omaha resident, asked if this was the new ballpark or Rosenblatt. This was 2009, so it was still Rosenblatt, because I think it was 9 and 10, if I remember right, were the last 2 years of Rosenblatt, and then 11, I think, is when it moved downtown to what was then TD Ameritrade and what's now, what is it, Schwab or whatever it is. But yeah, that was still the Rosenblatt days when Les Miles showed up. So Josh Pate was on ESPN's Get Up this morning, and Mike Greenberg asked Pate who LSU should go after next if they could pick any coach on earth. And here is what Pate said.
If I'm running the search at LSU, I'm making Marcus Freeman tell me no. I don't care that I just went to Notre Dame and it failed. That guy right there embodies the toughness, the characteristics. He's got swagger that I can combine with championship resources. I can get transfers into LSU a lot easier than I can Notre Dame. He's got to tell me no before I ever move to option 2 on my list.
All right, so that's Josh Pate on ESPN this morning, rattling off all the things that Marcus Freeman brings to the table. Thoughts on what you heard, Vince?
He's not wrong. I mean, if I'm the AD at LSU, sure, I'll make him tell me no. That's fine, because Marcus Freeman would be a home run hire. And that doesn't mean that he's interested. So there's the difference with what people are getting freaked out about, whether it's fans or media or whatever. Florida, Penn State, LSU, the top 3 jobs that are around, right? Why would they not call Marcus Freeman? I would call Marcus Freeman too, and I would be like, hey, man, are you interested? And he'll say no, and then you move on. Yes, of course you reach out to Marcus Freeman. That doesn't mean he's interested.
Correct.
It's a complete difference. You know what I mean?
And that's what's got so many fans, like either frustrated or concerned or whatever it is, because his name keeps popping up. But it's the same thing for any of these jobs. The big 3, LSU, Florida, and Penn State. You would be a fool not to pick up the phone and at least inquire about Marcus Freeman. You are not doing your job as an athletic director if you're not picking up the phone and at least asking about Marcus Freeman.
Correct. 100%. You're not doing your job.
But that doesn't
if
mean
you don't
he's
do that.
interested and he's going to make that move.
Yeah, correct. Yep, completely agree. So I would call Marcus Freeman too if I had an open job. No matter what the level was, I would call Marcus Freeman and make him say no. And I would throw as much money as I possibly could to try to get him interested. It worked with Brian Kelly, and I would think, well, maybe it'll work for Marcus Freeman as well.
Decaf18 in the YouTube chat asks, why does the national media think Notre Dame is a stepping stone in the coaching world? Well, part of it, like this came up on the Dan Lebitard show last week, and they were talking about this, and they used Brian Kelly as the example. And again, Brian Kelly had been here for 12 years. He became the program's all-time winningest head coach. He took the program to a national championship game and a pair of college football playoff appearances. We know the reasons he left. Like, he wanted more. He kept asking for more. He wasn't going to get more in spite, like after they had given him all these different things. And so he decided that he had reached this glass ceiling, what turned out to be a glass ceiling here at Notre Dame, and he was going to have a better chance to go to LSU. But I think a lot of them are looking at this as, because Brian Kelly made that move, even though he had been here for 12 years, like 12 years does not a stepping stone make. If you were here, like in Marcus Freeman's case, for an example, if you're Marcus Freeman, you get to a national championship game in year 3, and then in year 4, you're going to spin that off and you're going to go someplace else. That's much more a stepping stone type move. But they're trying to use Brian Kelly, who had been here for 12 years, and saying that's a stepping stone. Like, he used it as a stepping stone. That's not what Brian Kelly used Notre Dame for leverage. And ultimately, as you said, Vince, after he had shopped and kind of, made the moves and all these different kind of things, he tried to remove what in his mind were all these obstacles by going to a place like LSU. Marcus Freeman does not see the same obstacles that Brian Kelly saw, the artificial obstacles that Brian Kelly saw when he was here at Notre Dame. So I like apples, oranges. I think that's why so many are kind of are seeing Notre Dame in that light now.
Notre Dame hasn't won a national championship since 1988, and a lot of these SEC schools have. You know what I mean? And so they look at Notre Dame as a stepping stone, and Marcus Freeman is doing his darndest to make sure that that's not the case, and that if Notre Dame just wins a championship or two, right? People aren't going to look at it that way anymore and stay consistent nationally. Then Notre Dame's not going to be looked at like that anymore. But to a lot of other people, that's the way Notre Dame looks right now. And I get it. I don't agree with it, but I get it. It's not a stepping stone job, but I understand why people think it is. And that's fine. Let them think that.
Yeah. I mean, any state school, you're not going to have, as far as transfers that Pate was, it's easier to get some of these players in and that kind of thing. But look at Tay Johnson. Johnson a few weeks back, remember he made that comment about guys like me. This is Notre Dame is not I'm paraphrasing, obviously. Notre Dame is not a place that guys like me typically go to. But that's case in point, the way Marcus Freeman has shifted the thought of how you can recruit at Notre Dame. And that's not a guy. Tay Johnson is not a guy who Brian Kelly would never have even pursued a guy like Tay Johnson, but Marcus Freeman and his staff did.
Yep.
That's precisely why Notre Dame is in a completely different place in the pecking order today than it was when Brian Kelly was here.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I completely agree with you. Yeah, I'm with you.
All right. So many comments in the YouTube chat here, Vince. Some good points, though, being made. Herrick says, if Notre Dame was a stepping stone, Denbrock wouldn't have come back. Biaggi and Mickens would be gone. I agree with that to an extent. I get what you're saying. It's a little bit different for assistant coaches than head coaches because, and GMs as well, like Brian NY says, it was a stepping stone for Chad Bowden. Again, we're talking specifically about the head coaching position because assistant coaching positions just by the nature of the game and what they are, those are just naturally stepping stones. But how many assistant coaches have we heard come here to Notre Dame when we get to talk to them? You know, like, why'd you come here? When Notre Dame calls, you listen. Like, so many of them say some version of that. So you're absolutely right. I don't think Denbrock sees this as a stepping stone by any means, because like even listening to him and just where he is in his life and head coaching and stuff like that, I like he felt like he was coming back. He, you know, his third stint here at Notre Dame, like he had every plan of coming back and is in it for the long haul. Again, same but different when it comes to assistant coaches versus head coaches, though.
Yeah, it's a different animal, obviously. You know, Denbrock specifically, I mean, you nailed it. I mean, he wanted to come back. I know that his wife has roots here as well, and so you know that was a thing. That was definitely a family decision. You know what I mean? And it was the right one. Obviously, I'm obviously a big fan of that particular decision, and I think a lot of people are. But yeah, as a head coach, I don't at all see Notre Dame as a stepping stone job, but I can step outside myself and make the argument that it is the way that it's seen maybe in SEC country.
Well, like, you know, you said before, Notre Dame hasn't won a national championship since 1988. That's fair. But when you sit back and look at the number of programs that actually have won national championships in that time period, it's really a pretty small sample size of other schools that, like, when you look at how many Alabama has won, Nebraska has, you know, multiple, but again, like, it's been a while for them. Oklahoma, like, Ohio State has multiple national championships in that stretch. Florida has multiple national championships in that stretch. But as we were talking about last week, when you look specifically at Florida, their national championships are really more about, like, their success has largely hinged on two coaches, Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer. Everyone else who's come and gone through Florida has been spit out in, on average, a little bit more than 2 years. There's been a lot of turnovers there for a program that has won a couple of national championships. So like, again, like, sit back. LSU obviously has won multiple national championships. But it's a very small amount of schools that have actually won the national championships in that time since Notre Dame won its last title.
I don't disagree with you. I think a lot of people look at Notre Dame as like a tier 2 school and that it would be a stepping stone to an elite job. And I think a lot of SEC people look at LSU as an elite job because they've won national championships more recently. And so they look at Brian Kelly using Notre Dame as a stepping stone to LSU, just as an example, right? And, you know, you look at those top tier jobs, you know, LSU, Alabama, Clemson, you could throw Florida in there because they've won. You know, name the school. I think there's probably 10 or so schools that you could name in that time frame that people could make the argument that Notre Dame is a stepping stone to that. That's not taking into account everything else that is Notre Dame. And I think that's where the mistake is made. So that's why Notre Dame's not a stepping stone job to me.
I agree. I completely agree with that. On a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned does Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame need to be about the negative recruiting aspect of all this? You know, like, whether it's the stepping stone conversation or just his name coming up near the top of all these lists of these high-profile openings.
Like a 2. I think that one of the things that Notre Dame does really well, Marcus Freeman in particular, and obviously his staff is included in this, is form those relationships with the recruits.
Right.
And if they have the relationships that I believe that they have, the negative recruiting that's going to come in is going to be very quickly rebuffed by Notre Dame, and it's not going to mean a thing. They're going to have to answer some of those questions, which is why I said 2, because it's just something extra they're going to have to do. But I don't think it's going to have anything palpable. There's not going to be a change in that recruiting based on that because of the relationships that Notre Dame has already built with these guys. So it's not going to be an issue.
And that's kind of my range as well. It's in the 2.5 range to me, just because it's an extra potential headache, because you do have to answer those questions, but it's essentially the same conversation that he's talked about that he has with his team, the same conversation that you have with recruits and your assistants, those same conversations. Look, with success is naturally going to come interest, but I'm committed to Notre Dame and like the whole spiel. And I think that when you look at where they are right now and the connections that, again, like if this was Brian Kelly, I think it would be a different story. A guy like Brian Kelly, because he didn't have those same kind of relationships with the recruits, the players, and those kind of things. And I think that it's a lot harder to potentially overcome. But because it's Marcus Freeman, I think that he's got those connections. He's involved early in the recruiting process, and it's just kind of a little bit of a headache. I'm sure it's going to come up, but you just say, hey, that's, we're good. I'm here for the long haul.
Yeah, exactly. And again, he's signed through 2030. Like, I don't know that they need to make a splash and have him sign an extension and all.
Well, because that's another thing is like there are people who are like, well, why isn't Notre Dame, being more proactive, getting the word out there? And that it's like you don't need that kind of stuff.
No.
And like that's a great point though, actually, that he can bring up to recruits. Look, I just signed an extension last year. I'm
less than a year ago. It was last December, like
right.
Yep.
Joe's asking in relation to Bowden, is SC really a step up? Again, like,
well, it was for him because he's getting paid $1 million a year.
Paycheck. That's right. Like he's he might be the second highest paid because what's his name? Michael Lombardi out at North Carolina, who is, like making, a million times more than what he's worth right now. But he's the highest paid general manager in college football. I think Bowden might be the second highest paid. It's either him or the guy at Texas A&M. I think those are probably the three highest paid general managers. So, from Bowden's perspective, he says that he grew up an SC fan and that's where he wanted to be. And they're going to pay him all that. They overpaid to get Bowden because it served them, one, to get someone who was better than what they had, and two, to get that same person away from your biggest rival.
Yeah, exactly. That you don't want to play anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I am Tenzin. I have the son of Ang in the YouTube chat says, final comprehensive list of schools Freeman will go to based on family history and location proximity. Notre Dame, Ohio State, Air Force Academy. Can we be done now?
I don't think he's going to go to Air Force, even though his dad was in the Air Force. I don't see that happening. That's a pretty big move, obviously, and a step down. So he's not going to go to Air Force, but that's a great message. I love that. That's a great chat.
Joe said he was being sarcastic. Okay. We can't read sarcasm. So
it's tough. That is tough. Now, if Ohio State was open, I think there are legitimate questions as to whether Marcus Freeman would leave. That is the only job that I would be nervous about him taking off for, to be perfectly honest with you. That's the only one. And that one's not open, and nor will it be for a while. So,
I think Ohio State or the NFL.
That's fair.
I think the NFL, once the NFL cycle comes around, and that's going to happen in December, once, or I guess January, I guess the regular season is going to end late December. But you know what I'm saying? Once the NFL regular season ends, I think that Freeman's name is going to come up in those cycles again. But I also think that Marcus Freeman is going to be in the thick of a college football playoff hunt, and it'll kind of play out the same as it did last year.
I have no personal knowledge of this whatsoever, but I also feel like Marcus Freeman isn't going to leave Notre Dame with a challenge on the table, unfinished business.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think that's him. I could be wrong, and maybe an NFL team will scoop him up or whatever, but we just dealt with this last year with the Bears job, and Marcus Freeman, and that didn't last very long. I just don't feel like he's going to jump anytime soon. But if he does leave Notre Dame at some point, it'll either be Ohio State or an NFL job. I agree with that.
Christopher says Boston College would be a good landing spot for BK, but do we think he would put in the work to make Boston College thrive? That would be a great comeback story. I do not think that he would. I think that that's way too big a job for him, honestly.
Well, and I also think that,
Even though,
yes,
I mean, that's where his roots are.
yeah, Boston and the East Coast and all of those things, like that part of it fits Christopher, and I don't disagree with that part of it, but I think he has reached a point in his career where he's not going to put the work in. It's just not going to happen. He's not going to go backwards. Is it possible that that happens? Sure. That he has a complete renaissance to his career and starts just nose to the grindstone back like he was when he was up at Grand Valley. It's possible, but he's in his upper 60s. Like I don't see that being the case at this point in his career. He's got enough money to sleep on a bed of $100 bills. Like he doesn't need to work that hard anymore in his own mind.
It's like, I know you didn't watch the Rocky movie, Vince's, which, like sports fan who won't watch good sports movies, but like by the time you got to Rocky 3, and that was like kind of what that was about, was Rocky was battling not just other opponents, but also kind of the inner desire, like once you have all the spoils and the riches, and everything else, like, do you still have that same inner drive to work the same? And in Brian Kelly's case, I think we can look at it and say, no, he does not. Like, and where would the incentive be at this point? Because he's going to leave LSU. Like, the buyout is 54 million?
54, yeah.
And that's not even including the money that he's already made. So like he's like sitting on stacks of cash, and that's also not including the money that he already made from Notre Dame. Like, the man has more money than he'll ever spend in the rest of his lifetime. He has set his family up for generations with the money that he's made, but there's just not that much incentive to dig deep and go to work and do all those things to build up a program like Boston College or, any similar program like that for him.
Yeah, he's got plenty of money up to this point. He's got absolutely plenty of money. So he's going to have to be motivated to go someplace else. And I don't know I know there's going to be some contractual issues with that buyout, and I know that they're negotiating and all these different things. And if he gets another job or he goes into broadcast, whatever, he's got plenty of money. It doesn't matter. And when you've got that kind of money, are you motivated to work hard? You've got to have a special kind of motivation to do that. I'll be honest with you. If somebody handed me a $54 million check right now, I'd be like, Sean, I'm not coming on the show.
Working
on Wednesday.
would be the last thing that I would be thinking about.
Yes, 100%. Are you going to grind on the recruiting trail? Are you going to do all the things that you need to do? No.
The guy was not a grinder on the recruiting trail to begin with. So
Correct.
why would you think that he's going to grind when you give him all that money and he can go to his wine cellar and, like, he's more concerned with that kind of stuff, honestly.
Man, no kidding.
Josh says Vandy better give Clark Lee an extension. His name is going to be on someone's list, on a lot of lists, I think, right now.
I can't believe his name isn't being put out there more often, to be perfectly honest with you. He has freaking Vanderbilt in the top 10. Vanderbilt.
I know.
Like, I realize it's going to be tough to pry him away from his alma mater and Nashville and the whole. I get it, and they're making all kinds of improvements to their stadium, and they're doing everything that they want to do to keep him. He's one of those ones that I would call and make him say no. He's one of those ones, right around the same time as Marcus Freeman.
Right.
To be perfectly honest with you, because Marcus Freeman's winning. There's no doubt about it. Clark Lee's winning at Vanderbilt.
See, and that's the thing is Clark Lee is the perfect candidate, I think, for a place like Penn State. But does Penn State want to go back to Vanderbilt, considering that's where they got James Franklin from? Like, does some of that aftertaste kind of stick with them? Would you want to go back there again? I don't know.
It's a great question. I don't know. Is what he's done at Vanderbilt sustainable? I think that's a legitimate question. Are they going to get spoiled with these wins and things like that and want to stay up in the top 10? Is it sustainable? Does he want to be the rebuild guy and go to a perceived higher level place and rebuild there? I don't know, but he would be a call I would make, man.
Also, some irony, by the way, in the fact that Brian Kelly's last two games, both losses, were against two of his defensive coordinators from Notre Dame.
Yeah, I know, right? And the last one,
Lee and Mike Elko.
And the last one had no qualms in running it up on him, by the way.
No,
and
none at all.
That was not a hidden
Do
Fact.
we still think that Mike Elko was not talking
Man.
about Brian Kelly a couple of weeks ago when he made that comment at his press conference?
Man, that was some pettiness at its finest, and I'm here for it. I'll just say that.
Yep. Vince, I'm going to close with a couple topics that have nothing to do with what we've been talking about.
Sounds good.
Some relevant, something from the weekend that I thought was very interesting. Fill in the blank. Bill Belichick going for 2, but coming up short in North Carolina's overtime loss to Virginia Saturday is blank.
I mean, it's good for him. I at this point, what has he got to lose? Like, might as well go for broke. Like, that's the way I look at it. I mean, being conservative at this point is not going to do him any good. And he, of all people, knows you only live for so long, so you might as well just go for it. I like it. That's a call I would have made.
I was trying to win the game. Trying to win the game. Did you see any of that press conference? Trying to win the game. Just trying to win the game. I don't know what you want me to say. Trying to win the game.
Is that what he said?
Yeah.
That's so typical. Okay.
Trying to win the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to an extent, I get it, but why not just wait until the second or the third overtime when you have to go
I think
for
it's
2?
the second one.
Yeah. Why not just wait? It's a home game. You're not on the road. I realize Virginia is the higher ranked team, but you screwed it up for everybody else. You had Virginia on the ropes. You could have beaten them and caused a ripple effect in the rankings, actually had some kind of impact on the college football world in year 1 rather than your girlfriend and everything else being the conversation. Just, I don't know. I guess I don't mind the mentality. You're going for the win and all that kind of stuff, but do it when you need to do it. I don't know.
It was a noon game. It probably was cresting around the 4-hour marks. It was almost 4 o'clock. Senior specials, man. You got to get there before 5. I mean, he's going out to dinner that night. He gets the kid special on one end and the adult on the senior special on the other. You got to get there on time.
That's true. Very good point. Very good point. Okay. I want to get your take on this. The NBA season is starting, and I know, neither one of us is big NBA guy, but this has to do with the broadcast. So Focus on the broadcast. NBC and Peacock, of course, they're broadcasting NBA games this season. They're doing something unique with the Peacock broadcasts this year. They're going to have a 3-person broadcast team, the play-by-play announcer, and 2 different analysts. But here's the twists. Instead of having them sit together, at the table, play-by-play guy is going to be at the table, but each of the analysts is going to be next to the team's bench, and they're going to be actually broadcasting in that way, not just as a sideline reporter, but they're going to be broadcasting. They're calling that on the bench. The analysts are going to be able to listen in during timeouts and all that different kind of stuff. So what do you think about this idea? 3-person booth, analysts sitting by the bench doing their broadcasting.
I feel like they're thinking about this way too hard. I don't need somebody sitting next to the bench telling me what the coach is saying. You know what I mean? I just don't need
little booger mobile-ish, kind of.
Yeah. Remember that on the sideline and him going back and forth? That was so dumb. This is in that neighborhood for me. What's wrong with just having a play-by-play guy and a color guy sitting at midcourt calling the game?
3-person booths are hard enough to begin with.
Correct.
And throwing these guys together when they haven't really, done a game together. I'm just curious to see, does this sound disjointed? Does it actually sound like a good broadcast? Because it's going to require a lot, I think, to pull this off and make it actually sound good. So I'm curious just from that aspect.
Yeah, for sure. It is going to take a very seasoned play-by-play person to kind of run point with that kind of a broadcast. If you have a weak play-by-play person, it's going to be a disaster.
Exactly.
So
I'm very curious. All right, great feedback from the chat tonight. A lot of good stuff. We'll be back tomorrow, of course, and throughout the week as we gear up for another week of Notre Dame football. We'll talk to you then. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.